If you've ever felt like your company's key performance indicators, the KPIs, are less of a helpful guide and more of a bureaucratic distraction, then you are definitely in the right place today.
Hmm.
We're going to cut through all that data noise and try to understand why the very tools designed to help us succeed can so often lead us straight into trouble.
Yeah, we're moving beyond just the mechanics of measurement. We're getting into the really messy, but, crucial intersection of human behavior, of culture, and I think most importantly, organizational purpose.
Right. And our deep dive today, it's based on a new and really insightful article from Phoenix Performance Partners. It's titled Leadership Must Precede Management: Purpose-Driven KPIs for Cultural Success.
And that title, it really says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, that's the whole blueprint right there.
It suggests that, well, that too many organizations, even really successful, high-performing ones, are using their metrics, their KPIs, completely backward. They're managing before they've actually led.
Okay, so the mission for you, our listener, is pretty clear. We need to unpack precisely why measurement, when it's detached from a clear organizational purpose, creates what the source calls perverse incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a concrete, actionable framework for structuring those metrics so they actually serve the mission instead of, sabotaging it. Okay, let's unpack this.
I think we have to start with the central thesis we pulled out, which is that KPIs, when they aren't explicitly and just obviously linked to purpose, they lead directly to perverse incentives
Mm-hmm.
and to unintended, often damaging consequences.
Right.
The key distinction, really, is that KPIs are management tools. They're designed to gauge progress, but they shouldn't be the goal itself.
I think that is the hardest lesson for leaders to internalize, especially in, these really data-driven cultures. We start treating the measurement as the destination. We feel good when the numbers are green, and we don't really care what's happening outside the dashboard.
Exactly. And when that shift happens, people stop optimizing for the purpose, for the mission, and they start optimizing for the tool, for the measurement. And that is where things truly go sideways.
The source material provides this immediate, just visceral example. It's ripped right out of a hospital setting, and it perfectly illustrates the danger.
Mm.
So imagine a major hospital. They have this noble goal of reducing emergency room wait times. I mean, who would argue with that? Better patient experience, quicker care.
It's a textbook example of a great purpose. You're serving the community, you're saving lives.
So they set a crystal clear KPI. No patient waits more than 30 minutes before being seen by a doctor. They track it religiously, managers are held accountable, maybe bonuses are tied to it, and the result?
The number looks great.
The numbers look fantastic, wait times drop dramatically,
Yes, wow.
success rate, the dashboard was just glowing green.
But the problem wasn't the metric, it was what the metric incentivized.
Exactly. The perverse incentive that emerged was this. Ambulances started getting diverted. Why? Because the ER staff, driven by this intense pressure to hit that 30-minute target, they realized they couldn't accept new patients without breaking the rule. They literally had to choose between keeping the metric clean and, receiving a critically ill new patient.
Just think about that moment. The moment that decision was made,
Yeah.
the metric, that 30-minute processing time, it became more important than the organizational mission.
Which is to provide immediate quality emergency care.
Right. So patient care actually got worse even as the measured KPI was screaming stellar performance.
It's terrifying. It really is, because it exposes the human element here. The staff, they weren't malicious or negligent. They were doing exactly what their measurement system told them to do.
They were following the rules.
They optimized the 30-minute rule to keep their job secure, even at the expense of common sense and the lives of people being diverted.
Yeah. And the lesson here, and we really should pause on this, is that this kind of system gaming happens whenever the focus shifts from the mission to the measurement. People will always move toward their reward. If that reward is a green square on a dashboard, they will find the most efficient and often unintended way to make that square green.
Which just hammers home that core principle from the title: leadership must precede management. Always. This isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a required sequence of operations.
That's right. Leadership is the difficult, constant work of defining the vision, the purpose. It answers why do we exist and where are we trying to go. That's the destination, the true north.
And management is everything that comes after that. The
Okay.
systems, the tools, the KPIs. That's the compass.
And if you haven't explicitly defined the destination first, well, then your compass, no matter how precise it is useless. It can only tell you direction relative to where you are right now. If you don't know where you intend to end up, any direction will do.
Or worse, the direction you choose will lead you right off a cliff. But what I find so fascinating here is that the source highlights how often organizations actually start with the compass. They see some cool new metric they could track, like, say, social media shares, and they start tracking it vigorously before they've even defined why that metric matters to their actual purpose.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that we often treat the compass, the KPI, as if it is the destination, as if it's the goal. We get so caught up in the busy work of tracking and reporting and refining the measurement itself that we forget to clarify the purpose it's supposed to serve.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, if you hand me a map and a compass and say, go north, I'll go north. But if the actual goal was to reach a beach 50 miles south.
Your compass just sabotaged the mission.
Exactly. The metric was accurate, but the direction was totally wrong.
And that's precisely why you need structure once that purpose is clear. The source material lays out a really clear framework. It has 3 necessary types of indicators, and they have to be understood in a strict hierarchy. If you reverse this order, you pretty much guarantee failure.
Okay, let's get into this framework. We're shifting now from the strategic why to the more tactical how. We defined our purpose. Now, how do we structure the measurement to actually serve it?
The first and most critical category is outcome indicators.
Yeah.
These are, the ultimate measure of results, the actual achievement of your purpose. They answer the big question, did we get the job done?
And these outcomes, they have to be broken down into 2 types that work together, lagging and leading indicators. And people, I find, often only focus on the first one.
Right. Lagging indicators measure success after the fact. They are the final score of the game. Revenue, customer retention, patient survival rates. They tell you where you ended up. Very easy to measure, but they only confirm what happened after it's too late to do anything about it.
Then you have the critical ones, the ones that are often harder to find.
Yeah.
The leading indicators. These are really the gold standard because they predict the success or failure of that lagging outcome way in advance. They're the metrics that if they move, the final score is probably going to change. Things like pipeline health or, early intervention rates. They tell you what's coming and give you time to act.
That predictive power is everything.
Yeah.
If you're only measuring lagging indicators, you're basically driving by, looking in the rearview mirror. Leading indicators let you look through the windshield.
Yeah, but measuring results can be scary, right? Especially if they're bad. So most organizations fall back on the second type, process indicators.
Ah, yes. The safe ones.
Right. These measure compliance or efficiency. They answer the question, are we following the system we designed?
Process indicators are really attractive because they feel safe. They're easy to track. Did the paperwork get filed? Did the manager hold the meeting? It gives you this illusion of control.
And that illusion of control, that's the trap, isn't it? Because you can be 100% compliant with the process and still get 0 results. We saw that with the hospital.
Exactly. They likely had strong process metrics for intake speed, but that compliance led them away from their purpose. The source warns that process indicators are only useful in conjunction with outcome indicators, never instead of them.
So we have outcomes, which is the goal, and process, the path. What's the third piece of this puzzle?
The final type is input indicators. These measure the resources consumed. We're talking about time, money, human energy, materials. This is the at what cost principle.
I think this category gets completely neglected, especially the human cost. You might achieve phenomenal results, but if the resource cost, the input, is unsustainable, all you've really done is burn out your best people.
Or depleted your cash reserves. You won't be able to win again next quarter. It is the sustainability check. And crucially, we have to reinforce the hierarchy. You always start with the outcome. Then you add process. And finally, input. Never, ever reverse that sequence.
Okay, but let me push back a little on that. I mean, in reality, funding and resources, the input, that's often the first thing a business focuses on. It's measurable, it's immediate. How does a leader fight that instinct?
That's the leadership challenge, right? You fight it by constantly, relentlessly revisiting the purpose. If we agree that our purpose is to achieve X outcome, then input metrics are only interesting as a constraint or an enabler of X. If we start with inputs, we're basically saying our purpose is just to spend money efficiently, which is never the case.
That makes sense. The structure gives you the discipline. Okay, let's take this framework and make it instantly useful. Let's apply it to a concrete but kind of fuzzy organizational goal, building a culture where managers effectively develop their people.
Oh, that's a perfect test case.
Yeah,
It's something everyone wants, but no one really knows how to measure.
right. So if effective people development is the purpose, let's start at the top. The lagging outcome indicator. What's the final score? It would have to be something like team retention rate by manager.
Or maybe internal promotion rates from that manager's team. That tells you definitively over the past year, did this manager develop their people or deplete them?
Exactly. That's the confirmation. But waiting a year to find out your retention is tanking is way too late, so we need the predictive piece. What's the leading outcome indicator?
Well, the source suggests tracking the number of dedicated developmental one-on-ones per manager per month, or maybe the percentage of team members with an active, updated development plan.
That is so actionable because it's behavioral. If those conversations are happening, you can reasonably predict that retention will follow months later. You see the movement now.
Now we can layer in the management piece,
hmm
the process indicators. This is just, are they using the tools we gave them? So we might track manager participation in mandatory development training.
Or, are they completing the documentation in the talent management system on time? Simple compliance.
Right. And finally, the sustainability check. The input indicators. How much time is budgeted and actually invested in coaching managers each month? Or what's the overall manager workload? If the leading indicator, those one-on-ones, requires 4 hours a month, but the manager's already working 70 hours a week,
The system is not sustainable. The input is too high. It's going to break.
and that structural connection is the key insight. The leading indicators, the developmental talks, they predict the lagging indicators, the retention rate. You see the leading indicator shift now, which gives you 3 to 6 months to intervene before the lagging one confirms it's too late.
But even the most perfect framework is going to fail if no one is forced to look at it. I mean, measurement is useless without action, and action requires clear accountability. That's the missing link, I think, in so many companies that say they love KPIs.
It absolutely is. So many companies define what to measure, but they completely fail to define who is responsible for making sure that measurement moves in the right direction.
And this leads us to the source's accountability principle, which they call the rule of one. One individual must promise to be fully accountable for ensuring each targeted KPI is achieved.
And that emphasis is non-negotiable. It's not a committee. It's not a cross-functional working group. It is one person. That individual owns the promise. They track the progress, they coordinate the changes, and maybe most importantly, they sound the alarm when things start trending down.
So if the lagging outcome is customer retention, the entire sales team might be responsible for the tasks that lead to it. But one sales director is accountable for that final number. They own the promise.
Exactly. If accountability is diffused among a group, the KPI becomes everyone's responsibility, which is just the organizational way of saying no one's responsibility. The metric will just quietly drift into the red, and no one intervenes until it's way too late.
So for you, as you go back into your own work, the source gives you 4 immediate steps to apply. First, check your purpose alignment. For every single metric on your dashboard, ask, is this number explicitly anchored in our core purpose, or have we just lost the thread?
Second, audit your indicator balance. Look at your dashboard. Is it all process and compliance? Are you missing actual results? Do you have both leading and lagging outcome indicators?
Third, and I love this one, identify one missing leading indicator. Find that one behavioral driver, that one predictive metric that would signal the success or failure of a lagging outcome you care about, and just start tracking it now. Don't wait 6 months for failure to be confirmed.
And finally, step 4, assign clear, singular accountability. For your most critical KPIs whose name is next to the promise, if you can't point to one specific person, that data is destined to be ignored.
The journey we've taken through this article, it confirms one really powerful and frankly slightly terrifying truth. Metrics are incredibly powerful tools.
They are, and because they're powerful, they're inherently dangerous. They focus human attention, and they absolutely drive behavior. When they're anchored in a clear, compelling purpose, that leadership step, they guide powerful, sustainable transformation.
But when they're disconnected, they just create manipulation and all those perverse incentives we talked about.
And cultural damage. Leadership must always, always precede management.
Get clear on why you exist, and then, and only then, choose the metrics that will serve as your true north.
And here's the final provocative thought for you to mull over as you audit your own dashboard. Pick your organization's single most important KPI, the one that really defines your success. Now imagine you had to eliminate every single process and input indicator you track. If you could only keep two things, what is the one leading indicator and the one lagging outcome indicator that truly ruthlessly measure if you're achieving your purpose? What do you really need to know? That's the deep work